Hi, I'm Bill Kristol. Welcome back to Conversations. I'm very pleased to be joined again by James Carville, with whom we had a discussion, with whom I had a discussion, 5 weeks ago, which stands up quite well. Quite well. You were pretty bullish on Harris's chances and on the convention. Then after the convention, I guess it slipped back to maybe an even race. So last night was the debate. We're speaking here on, September 11th. Where do we stand? What do you think?
Well, Fox ran a story the night before the debate. I did Dan Abrams' show, and I said, look, I'll be honest with you, I think Trump's walking into a trap. And I knew who was in the prep room, and they were the right people. And I thought that she would do very well. I thought he would be typically undisciplined, and he was. I mean, Laura Loomer there playing with him. So yeah, I think it went very well. It's hard to, I was texting people last night, and as you have been around Democratic culture a little bit more, there's a great deal of negativity. I mean, it's smart if you say something's wrong. And I had a friend of mine who's actually very smart. And this person texted me, I wish you'd talk more about the middle class. And I said, did you see the first 7 minutes of the debate? I mean, she was laying out child tax credits and everything that you could. And I think this person was just felt like they had to be nitpicky. And the stuff that I would get via text last night was very nitpicky.
But you think getting under his skin, which was, I think, which she obviously did, and which really is driving a lot of the coverage, at least as of now, the next day of the debate. It was very noticeable at the time. I mean, people now talk about it as if, well, of course she got under his skin, but I don't think that's that easy to, it wasn't so obvious that was going to work, at least to me. I thought she did it very skillfully, don't you think?
I did. And I thought the biggest challenge she had was people don't know her. I think they found out a little bit more about her last night. And there were 28%. I saw one poll. I hate to quote one poll, but I remember in the back of my mind, it was a deep, pretty good one. It said 28% were open for more information about her, and 9% were open for more information about him. That last night couldn't be anything but good. In that sense, you usually try to play these events down. Well, it's pretty good, but out of 63 to 37 said she won the debate. Somebody told me, a reliable person, I had seen it myself. Pluff said that somebody that they both did dial groups and they were about the same. Showed what you'd expect them to show. And on the abortion question, there was a 40-point advantage, I think, of which is unheard of. So I can't tell you, people said, well, the convention didn't change much. It actually did change a little bit. If you look at favorability and other things were better. I think last night, I don't think can't tell you it's going to be dramatic changes, but I would be a little disappointed if she didn't have some better from people that are more familiar with her, and a little bit more of a positive opinion. And the biggest thing she did was talking about turning the page. that was, and hopefully he looked stale in yesterday, and I think he kind of did.
Well, this is what you stressed 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I really think she very much stressed that. She had that line that I think was prepared. At one point when he was going on about the Biden-Harris administration, blaming her for things, and she said, I'm not Joe Biden. I'm certainly not Donald Trump. And she sort of took the edge off the first half of that sentence, in a sense, by making it an anti-Trump thing ultimately. But I think she really wanted to say that, don't you think? She wanted to say those words, I'm not Joe Biden.
Oh, I'm sure. She went in. I was very clear that she needs to kind of separate herself from Biden. I mean, that's not being disrespectful. I think people understand that. What she has here, Bill, is when you think about it, she has a lot of strategic space. I mean, she has Dick Cheney and Pramila Jayapal in her coalition. Okay, that's not going to last very long. But for right now, hey, whatever you got to say, I'm fine with it. I mean, and so now the question is, does she pivot? Okay, I hate that word, but just people use it all the time. What I think she has license to do is, I think the parties, whatever we consider its base, will allow her great leeway in appealing to more unaligned voters. And that's that. And Trump doesn't have, in abortion, he's caught. He doesn't have very much strategic space at all. Because if he goes one way, the pro-life people will get furious. If he goes another way, and the people that he needs to supplement his base get furious. He's caught in a pretty bad place there. And I can't think of an issue where she doesn't have space to operate.
Yeah, well, I was struck by that. So let's just talk. Well, let me get back to one question about the votes. I mean, I think some people, the race is over last night and all. Other people, the other extreme, the debate, it's not clear it'll change any vote share, any ballot test, even though she won the debate. I did see one. Someone told me about a private, super PAC that was doing its own focus groups and dial testing that actually asked the ballot test, didn't just ask who won the debate, but asked are you like, these were undecided voters and soft supporters of both Harris and Trump. And there was pretty good movement. I mean, it wasn't, 80-20. It was more like 45-25, but with about 35 still saying, I want to know more. But that's pretty surprising, I think, for a debate. It usually doesn't move the ballot test much at all. I mean, do you think we will see actual movement in the polls?
I hope so, but I'm not very good at predicting these things, and probably neither is anybody else. Okay?
No, of course, that's for sure.
Let's just say this up front. Let's just take the economy, because I'm working on a piece. And the question is not, is it a good economy or a bad economy? I mean, you can ask that, and it's fine. But have we got to the point where people feel like they have something to lose? All right, but maybe it's not what I want it to be. I was at the Wall Street Journal today, was for the first time, incomes are up since the end of the pandemic. 4% is pretty good. And they adjust for inflation and everything else when they do that. It's just not a number they pull out. We know the stock market is good. And we know that hasn't, Trump said, well, I don't like it overall, but if Trump gets in there, and they did a good job of highest tariffs would be bad, and economists say this would be bad. So I'm sitting there saying, well, I got a little bit more than I thought I did. I tip a little bit higher. I buy extra magazine at the airport. I mean, in your own kind of behavior, and other people feel the same way. So I think she doesn't need to tell people the economy is great, but I think she now has license to say you have something to lose. And I think that's an important threshold across.
Yeah, that's interesting. So any issues that leapt out to you last night, and then we'll go forward, that either slight vulnerabilities for her, just to get on the naysaying side again, or real strengths that she can just continue to exploit? Anything that got you slightly worried, or other things that really you thought, man, she can really go to town on this?
Still needs to, because they're going to continue on the 2020 foolishness. And she's answered it, but she's going to have to do it a little bit better, and I think she can. But she looked like she knew what she was talking about. I mean, she didn't look vapid at all. She didn't look, when you introduce somebody as a former prosecutor, attorney general, United States Senator, vice president, she honestly, a person from home that's not particularly engaged, she said, well, I don't know if she's qualified. I said, I can tell you what, in terms of qualifications, the most qualified person to run non-incumbents is maybe old man Bush. I mean, you could say what you wanted about him, but he was qualified by any stretch of imagination. I think she is too.
But less well known. I mean, she had the virtue, we discussed this a month ago, of not having a primary, of course, and getting the nomination in this somewhat bizarre and unusual way. She had the deficiency of not having to go through a year of debates and speeches and tough interviews. And so, I mean, that was why I was nervous the last few days. She's just, presidential debate, as you know, is its own thing. And she's never done one of those. And she's done one VP debate 4 years ago. and not a whole ton of real big interviews over the last 4 years. It was impressive that she was as poised and in command as she was, I thought.
So I was told that Philippe Reines, who played Trump, who's very good at it. I mean, they're like these guys, like almost like golf to them. I mean, they practice all the time. And he was some sort of in a debate prep. I was told, I can't verify this, that he actually kind of dressed like Trump. He had like a blue suit and a red tie, took too long. But he has all of the mannerisms down. And I didn't have the sense that she was surprised by anything. And I had the sense that she was prepared. And you could see the answer. I'm not Joe Biden, but I'm not you either. But she was waiting for that. You know that. And you know that they said, okay, slow down, say this. And there was a guy in debate prep, I'm told, by the name of Michael Sheehan, who was like an MVP that no one ever heard of. I never, from 1986 on, I would never do a debate without Michael. And this is where you're looking when you say the line. You say it 5 times. The camera angle with which she wore, it was like, I liked the outfit she had on when she went on the stage. And I think it sort of startled Trump because she's up what I'd call a handsome looking woman. She's tall and she looks authoritative. And I thought she, kind of sexist to say it, but who gives a shit? Now, I thought she was dressed very well for it. And I think her appearance probably rattled him a little bit out of the chute.
Do you think her walking over to shake his hand, which I don't think he expected?
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And she wanted him to get a good look at her.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, the last Democratic candidate he got a good look at was President Biden, which, not exactly going to scare you off the stage.
Yeah, no, I think her going over there and being at all totally unintimidated, that was pretty interesting.
All intentional and very, very good.
Will there be another debate?
There'll be a debate over the debates. Because now Trump is saying he won, 91% says he won. He doesn't think they need another. She said that she's willing. Prior to last night, given the latest spate of polls, there were a lot of different, but Democrats were getting alarmed. They will feel a little bit better. She's more in control of things now than he is. I mean, this is what's changed. So I'm fine, and then he'll come up, and then we'll have a long debate about debates and whether or not she should do long form interviews or sit down on. This is inevitable, but if the subtle change in position is very favorable to her as she deals with these things going forward.
I think it's such an important point. It doesn't always show up, as you say, in the actual ballot tests and the polls and so forth. But somehow I do feel like there was an inflection point, and she now can sort of shape things in a way that wasn't clear that she could a couple of days ago.
I would never let a pollster do what they call a doubts battery. Bill Kristol is right-wing authoritarian, has said in some op-ed piece and such. The question is not, do you agree or disagree with Bill Kristol's statement? The question is, are you more or less likely to vote for Bill Kristol having heard this? All right. That's always what I used to hate to get these questions. I don't care if people agree or disagree with it. All right. But what I want to know is, does this drive voting behavior? Because it's the only thing you really care about. You made a very astute point that at least one person we don't know for sure, that it did change votes. And the question is not who you think won the debate. Are you more or less likely, or you might ask it a little bit broader, having seen this debate, are you more or less likely to vote for Harris or Trump, which is a much better framing of the question.
So what does she do now, do you think? I mean, there's people that she's got to get out there and do a million interviews. Other people, no, you really need to take a week to capitalize on this and ride this white wave as long as you can. And How does this work? You've been in '92. We were joking about this before the camera started rolling. You were there with Bill Clinton. Had a very good debate against George H.W. Bush in, I guess, mid-October of '92. And I mean, how do you capitalize on a good debate?
Well, I think you're going to see it. I think crowd. They'll ask me about immigration. This is my favorite. They asked about immigration. I love this. We need to talk about the issues. If Trump just went out and, okay, so they asked immigration. That was the strongest issue. And he started talking about crowd size. If I was his campaign manager, I'd have stuck a fork in my eye. All right. So I love this, Lindsey Graham. If you just go out and talk about the issues, it's all going to be fine. Of course, you can't do that. And he gets the immigration question. By the way, she pretty good. I think she did pretty well on that question, but he didn't even take advantage of that because he's so massive. He's a massively insecure person. That's the thing to remember about Trump. And we always miss that point because his people think he's, so ordained by God and King Cyrus and everything, but he is just insecure about his hand size. He's insecure about his hair. He's insecure about the fact that he's never been part of the Manhattan elite. He's insecure about a lot. And you can just see that coming out. He's just a massively insecure guy, and it was on display.
I thought that was a key. So they began with the economy, where I think she did fine, but he did his thing. Then they went to abortion, where she did very well, and he's weak on that. But then they came to immigration. I think despite all the talk about it, the ABC people were so tough on Trump. That was a pretty good sequence for Trump. I mean, he got the economy first, and then he got immigration third. And she gave a good answer. I agree, better than, she emphasized the bipartisan bill that Trump torpedoed and so forth. And she stuck in there, and it really was kind of stuck in. This didn't have anything to do with it. The crowd size point, right? She's the one who said, and incidentally, his speeches are boring and the crowds are leaving before they're over. And it didn't have much to do with the immigration answer. But that was very well done. He couldn't resist, right? I mean, he as you say, he missed 90 of the 120 seconds of what is his best issue, because he couldn't resist saying, no, that's totally wrong about the crowds.
I just said, but I love the issues. Oh, if we just forgot everything and we just voted on the issues. But the most popular thing that you can propose in American politics is, and will be raising taxes on people that make over $500,000 a year. I want to tell you that, but that's the issue that will get you 73% every time. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious when he had a chance to run with the issue. He went to crowd size.
My instance, a lot of people have been saying she should follow up with a lot of interviews. I'm not really sure that's right. I mean, what do you think is a tactical matter here?
But I don't know. I don't think the public really cares if she sits down with a half hour with Caitlin Collins, right, or with anybody else. I mean, it's become, they always have to say something. All right. Whatever you do, it's never going to be satisfactory. And I got some text this morning from some reporters. Do you think she needs to sit down? I'm not sure she does at all. And the big question people are going to have is, are we going to have another debate or not? That's what people give a shit about. Right. That, I don't know what the audience was last night, but it was a lot. It was tens of millions easily. And who wants to sit there and watch, Meet the Press for 40 minutes where you just grilled? I mean, not very many people on. Now, I think it's Meet the Press has been very good to my family, but that's just not where people are.
I mean, I was thinking about this. Yeah, I don't. And also, I just think you can make one slight slip up and suddenly that becomes the story. And I think you can ride this debate for, maybe I'm wrong, though, for quite a while. I mean, it was a very big deal. Tens of millions of people watched it. It's now going to have second and third day, follow up in terms of clips being shown. Do you agree with that? I mean, she has some time here to ride this, right?
I totally agree with it. And one of the things that really conspired against him was the last debate was maybe the most significant presidential debate in presidential debate history. I mean, it ended up with a candidate having to drop out of the race. So I think just heightened it. And also, really believe that the Trump people and even some of the non-Trump people thought he was a great debater. He's never been. I mean, his play against Biden, which is like beating the Chicago White Sox or something. I mean, everybody does that. But a big question, I think, is, will there be another? And she says, okay, I'm fine with that. And he said, well, I don't know if I need one. And of course, they'll figure something out. And when you're asked the inevitable question, when are you going to do a long form interview? He says, I'm ready to do another debate. I want to do it where most people see it, and I have best chance to make my case. And you're never going to satisfy him. So it doesn't matter. Just forget about it and just keep talking about the next debate.
No, that's good. I like that. No, I'm slightly against the interview focus. I just think it can trip you up in a way that's not helpful. And she's already made her key points. She could, I mean, the other way to go might be, or a way to go would be to give some set speeches on major issues. That is a tradition that presidential candidates do. Bill Clinton did it in the fall of 91. She never had a chance to do it in a sense, but you could, and those would, they might not be fascinating. Millions of people aren't going to watch them. But from a media point of view, you give your serious speech at Georgetown on foreign policy and your serious speech at some economic club on economic policy.
Right, economic club. This is kind of gold standard. I don't know why I destroyed economic, right. But it's easy to get to. It sounds very middle America and, industrial. But and what's wrong with that? Yeah, Georgetown, Clinton, we did our foreign policy speech in Georgetown. It's close by. Everybody knows it's got a good brand. Take advantage of it. She could do a China speech.
Right.
All right. And talk about how it's a adversary but not an enemy. There's a standard foreign policy, foreign affairs magazine. But you can do that, and it's got to be covered, and it will. And she can make news like that. She can do new economic stuff. She can talk about how tariffs, have a very checkered history of, doing any good. I mean, there's 1,000 things that she can do, and she can actually take 5 or 6 questions, of which you can plant 2. Okay, I mean, just one of the things. They should never do a town hall, a speech. You can't plant all the questions because it'll be evident that they were planted, but you can say, to Mr. Kristol, you in the back. Oh, gee, I'm glad you asked that question. I hadn't thought about it right now, but blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, God, she's pretty good on her feet. Bill Kristol asked her a question, and she hadn't thought about it. And of course, I thought about it for 5 hours.
I'm shocked to even hear this discussion of being anything less than perfectly straightforward in a campaign. But I do think, the speeches might answer some of the media complaints about policy, and also let her develop some policy stuff, which could be, it's a way of going to the center in a very careful way, it seems to me, where you could write it up ahead of time so you're not, you don't inadvertently get into some controversy where Bernie Sanders is attacking you for the next 3 or 4 days. I'm not sure that would hurt, but still.
No, I think that. I would be surprised if she doesn't do some of that.
Yeah. For me, of course, as a McCain person, I love the moment when she went out of her way. Again, this was clearly planned in discussing Obamacare and healthcare, which is not a McCain special issue, unlike foreign policy. She went out of her way to remind everyone of the moment when McCain showed up on the floor of the Senate when he was already ill and with the thumbs down, and she was a senator then, so it was appropriate for her to reminisce about that. And it was a way of her to say the late great John McCain, and then Trump had to remind everyone why he didn't like McCain. I mean, it was just, but there are quite a lot of people voted for McCain, and so there's some number of them probably were interested that she respects McCain and spoke well of him.
Jimmy, his son, who every time I would see Senator McCain, I think Jimmy was in the Marine. I think he was enlisted Marine for a while.
Yes, I think he was.
And he'd always bring up Jimmy to me. And I didn't say, like, with Dick Cheney, he didn't say, I'm torn, I can't. I mean, he said, I'm voting for Harris. And I keep hearing from a lot of people, and the same thing is true of the Bulwark people and other people, we're for Harris. That's it. We're not like reluctantly, and we've been sucked into this. that's just where we are. And you keep hearing about these people. I won't say their names, but their initials are Rex Tillerson and Jim Mattis. How much they hate Trump and what a giant fool he is, but they won't say anything. Well, if Dick Cheney came out, you can come out and just say, I'm simply voting for Harris. It's not that hard. And you might lose a couple of gin rummy partners at the Dallas Country Club, but such is life. We all have to make sacrifices, don't we?
It's striking how many of them don't want to quite cross that bridge. They'll say nasty, things, even when it's not as a public, about Trump's lack of judgment and all this other stuff, and then they won't quite pull the trigger, so to speak, right?
Do what Dick Cheney did.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm voting for Harris. It's interesting. I mean, maybe you don't want to go as far as Liz went and endorse Colin Alford. Okay, I can buy that, but it's that it's necessary. But just say, and I do think that Cheney saying that is going to make some difference. I mean, you kind of know where it'll make a difference. Is there's just certain people, most of them in pretty affluent, traditionally Republican areas. They said, well, Cheney's doing it. I guess I can do it too. I mean, it needed some permission to do what they kind of inclined to do in the first place. And I think it was important. And I wish more of these types would come out and just say, you don't have to say anything more than I'm going to cast my vote for Harris in the coming presidential election. That's it. You don't need any more than that. And it's evident why.
Yeah, as someone who's been involved in the attempt to get Republicans to come out for Harris against Trump and then for Harris, I'd say there's a lot of skepticism. Would it really matter? But do you think it would, especially if there were more? Don't you think there's some critical mass? And I mean, if George W. Bush, for example, why is he being so quiet, incidentally? What's that about?
A lot of them are just torn by this. I don't know. Ask them. I don't think. Hopefully, I think Cheney was bigger than W. I think it gave people more of a license. I don't know how to quantify that, but it looks like I think it's going to be a huge number of votes. No, but it make a difference in a lot of places that make a difference. Some Buckhead and places like that. A lot of places in Maricopa County, Scottsdale, where you probably wasn't going to lose on a normal election 68-32. Might lose 65-35. That's you accumulate enough of that, you can do pretty good.
Yeah, there are a lot of people. There are people who there's the George W. Bush, Paul Ryans of the world. They're the people who served in Trump's own cabinet and own White House, the John Kellys of the world, as you say, Tillerson. I mean, there's a big, fairly substantial pool of people who could say, look, I'm not going to attack the guy for 10 minutes. I'm not going to discuss private conversations we had in the Oval Office. I'm just going to give you my judgment. He shouldn't be president again, and I'm going to vote for Harris. Don't you think that would be enough?
Like those wow counties in Wisconsin, those like suburban kind of traditional Republican counties around Milwaukee. I bet you that that Trump does less well there than you would think. And I think that's where this matters.
Well, that would really be something. But you think it still would help to get more there's some comfort in numbers.
I do. I do. I think you need to, people just need an extra shove because it's hard. If you've been, if I had to vote for, I voted Democratic all my life. I'm kind of it's in the DNA, and it's hard to abandon your DNA and let you. Yes, I do, and I think it is. By the way, for every voter in Milwaukee, kind of lethargic, low propensity voter, you get one vote. For every wow county Republican you turn around, you get a net 2.
Yeah.
All right. Which is, I'd rather have a net 2 than 1. I take both, but you don't have to make a choice between the two at all.
The gender gap, do you agree that it could be bigger than ever in this election, or is that people say that all the time? It doesn't quite work. What's your thought on that?
I've always been worried about our males, and there's just yes, females are more important than males by a factor probably 52 to 48.
Right.
48 is a big number in American politics. I hope the gender gap closes, but it closes in a way that we don't lose females, but we pick up more, and we may. And I have kind of thought, how we have every cycle, there's a fashionable demographic, NASCAR dads, soccer moms, national security mom, the year of the black female. Okay. I actually think that the demographic that may have the most elasticity in this cycle might be white college males.
Well,
They tend to be much more pro-choice than non-college white males. B, they're probably doing because of the markets and other stuff. I don't have the figure in front of me, but I'm pretty safe in saying that more college white males in stock market than other demographics, and that we are the least fashionable demographic in America. But you could listen to NPR for 2 weeks and not even know that we exist. All right, but I do think there's some elasticity in upward movement for her among college white males.
Interesting. Well, that would be worth really looking at.
Right. It's instinct. I can't go to a well of polling data or anything, but it seems like there's real chances there. And I think the abortion stuff is really can open up some opportunities there.
And I suppose just the Trump looking kind of crazy and chaotic, and these people.
Right. If you're a mid-level banker, you're not impressed with what you saw.
Right. On the 2019-2020 issues that you mentioned, where she took these left-wing positions, which she's walked away from, but hasn't really explained much why she changed her mind. Any ones that strike you as particular vulnerabilities that you think the Trump people are just going to hammer for the next week or 2 or 3 as they try to recover from the debate?
Oh, she has vulnerabilities. Every kind of silly thing they thought I'd love to know who the political consultant was that told her to do that, because she should be summarily horsewhipped.
Yeah.
It was a really strange time in the Democratic Party where I don't know, people collectively thought this was the wave of the future. And because it was no such thing, and she's just going to have to say that she grew and experienced. And there's good answers to it. I don't know, can't tell you there's great answers to it, but she needs to deal with it I wish it had come up more last night. I think you want to get it out of the way. That may be where you do a long form interview where you gotta always want the question. So, if I were coaching somebody, once you have a sense that I hope they don't ask about this, then you've lost. You got to affirm, say, I want them to ask me about that because I'm ready for it. Because in anything in life, if you want to avoid talking about something, it comes up, you're not going to do it very well. You got to put in your mind, I want that question. And I think she can do that. And I think the other thing she last night gave her, then understand, she hadn't been on a national stage that long. Her presidential race was disastrous. She had a not particularly stellar first 2.5, 3 years as vice president. And she's got to be feeling today like, goddamn, I can do this. And she should. Just reasons that she should. And confidence is a big, big thing in a candidate. Big thing.
Yeah, talk more about that. I'm so interested by, you've been through these campaigns, and what do we have? A little less than 8 weeks left here as we speak on September 11th. And it's just psychological. How will it go now? I mean, how fast is the pace? How crazy is it? Does she have time to step back and say, well, I really need to address some of these, get out of the way almost, some of these objections about what I said in the past. Maybe I'll give a set speech on that next week, or is it just frantic 4 events a day? I mean, what will it be like, and how fast and furious will everything be, and how much can she make it a certain way?
Well, all right, we got some markers coming up. So September 11th today, she can do, but the big marker coming up is October 7th.
Interesting.
Okay, that's going to be a bucket load of coverage. Is that it's a lot of uncomfortableness everywhere, but particularly in some quarters of the Democratic Party. And if I'm her, I got this thing bookmarked, and maybe that's a time to give a speech on, foundations of Middle East policy or something like that. I don't know, but you're not going to escape October 7th. I think October 7th is a more relevant date than September the 11th. Not that I think it's a more relevant event, anything like that, but one is 23 years ago and one is not even a year ago.
Right.
And they got to be aware of that. That's a big date. And that's clearly a place where she could give a speech and take some questions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess in general, I'm struck that tell me if I'm correctly interpreting this, that you're saying that you don't, obviously she'll capitalize on her strengths, the issues she's got a big advantage on over Trump and the personal characteristics she has an advantage on, but she also needs to play some defense at the same time that you're playing offense and prop up your walls, your protection on some of these things where they are going to come after, whether it's, I guess, immigration or crime or some of the stuff in 2019, 2020. And maybe, it would be a mistake to think that she had a good debate and therefore she can just forget about all these other things are done, finished.
No. We did, October 7th is going to come and it's going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah. And these other issues they will give them some attention. Anything, VP debate, October 1st, I guess that's scheduled. I guess that will happen. Will it matter?
Well, you see, he threw Vance under the bus last night.
Is that right?
Yeah. Harris said that the Vice President J.D. Vance said this, well, I talked to him about that. I think it was on an abortion question.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But the guy has just been a massive disappointment, and he hears stuff, particularly from these right-wing Catholics, and he goes out and repeats it like it's really small. I know, and the childless cat lady thing came right out of Tucker's mouth, in his ear, and out of his mouth. Okay, that's so Tucker-esque. It's not even. You don't even have to think twice of where that came from. But Bob record, he used to work for Bill. I used to do a TV show with Tucker. We know him quite well. That came. That's where it came from. And boy, I tell you, and she made reference, but what you look for in politics is something sticky. That somebody, and sometimes it's like unjustified. But the potato incident or something that just can't. I didn't have sex with that woman. I mean, I could think of many things that on our side also, but the childless cat lady thing, it's now standard. You don't need to explain it to people. And then they started talking about the immigrants eating cats. Like, okay, you're just bringing more attention to it. They can't get away from it. And go have the debate. People will kind of watch it because Vance is a kind of object of curiosity. He's shown himself to be something weird about that guy. And it's going to be interesting. It'll have some play. It'll have some play.
Yeah, maybe more than a typical VP debate, like our undercard debate, like ours was. Yeah.
All we had, the famous 1988 of John Kennedy was a friend of mine. But
Thank you for reminding. It's good that you bring up all the
yeah,
potato. The
right.
John Kennedy is a friend of mine.
Right. But people, you don't even have to explain these things
True.
anymore. They
Yeah.
just have become part of, Biden, we're going to get rid of Medicare, whatever he said, but it's just funny how Biden doesn't exist anymore. And you could see she was waiting for that. I'm not Joe Biden. Okay. That was in her quiver. She was ready for that. She wanted to say that. And then of course I'm not you either. And that was a good breakaway moment for her.
Yeah, I've been very on the negative side for Harris. I've worried a lot about the incumbency. You just can't walk away from it. You're the vice president. It's a wrong track. The country thinks 2/3 we're on the wrong track. Biden's not doesn't have a high favorable rating. So how do you? And I got to say that's the attack on her is far left. I think I'm not sure how successful it was, but that Trump did try to do last night. The actual tying Biden administration things around Harris's neck didn't do that much of it. I see generally she's paid less of a price for that than I would have thought in this campaign. Do you think she still could, or is it just she's just so different from Biden that it doesn't quite stick?
There's a simple fact of American politics you have to acknowledge. The Democrats just have not lost an election since Dobbs. And I include 2022 in that. I don't think this administration is any less popular today than it was in October, November of 2022.
No, that's for sure. Yeah.
And, I've always alluded to it cracks me up. All these people that say, this is what the Democratic Party, all these Republicans, there's always been Republicans giving advice to Democrats. But this is what you really need to do to get your house in order. I'm like, well, if the measure is winning elections, we really don't need to get our house in order. We're doing fine. If it's something else, maybe we do. So I think there's evidence. We've had a bucket load of special elections or referenda. There's been a lot of political activity since the summer of 2022. And it's been almost universally favorable to Democrats, which is in an environment where the Democratic presidential administration is certainly, you'd say, is not particularly popular.
And you think that's mostly Dobbs?
It's the first place. I suspect it is. I mean, it was the biggest mega event that would account for winning elections when you're not particularly popular at the top. I think it is Dobbs.
And I thought Harris did a good job last night of saying, A, you appointed these three justices who made overturning Roe possible, and B, she referred over and over to the Trump abortion bans in these different states because Trump has in his mind that he can get out of it by saying it's a state's issue, not a national issue now, but maybe not quite so easy, right? And then there's the question, would you veto a national abortion ban and all that stuff, right?
But Democrats, people would not trust us on taxes. We'd come out and say, oh, no, we're from middle-class tax code. They don't trust the Republicans on abortion. They don't give a shit what they say. I know who these people are. They're just saying that to say that. And the harder they try, this is another thing I noticed about Trump last night. Most great politicians, and people like Reagan and Clinton and even Obama come to mind, you never saw them sweat. They never looked desperate. Of course, they were trying very hard, effective as you can be. He looked like he was really trying last night. He went the abortion thing. He was talking fast. You could see he was nervous. He was trying to talk around it. And I think voters got a little bit of a sense of that. He didn't like it. Of course, he didn't believe shit about abortion. And everybody wanted it. All the legal scholars, everybody wanted to return to states, of course. But it doesn't do any good to argue with him on that. And I think she did a good job of humanizing the issue.
Yeah, no, I thought that was impressive. Well, you go in a few minutes, but last words for Vice President Harris herself, for Governor Walz, for the campaign strategists. Still a long way to go, but
yeah, I'd say there's a long way to go. People still, for better or worse, know Trump. They both know who you are and Trump are. They're pretty convinced that they know what Trump is. There's still, I know you had a great debate, you had a great convention, but there's still, you still have some more to fill out here. There's no doubt about that. And, you got some, always look at the calendar. Okay. It make the calendar your friend. And I do think that they need to look at the fact that my sense is there's a little economic momentum out there. And it's based on some improved consumer confidence numbers and stuff like that. You certainly shouldn't go out and tell the people that the economy is great or good, but you can sort of imply that you have something at risk now. This is not, you start laying tariffs on everything and start doing a lot of herky-jerky stuff. You could make things worse. And I think there's real opportunity there.
Yeah, that's interesting because, Biden was criticized, including by you and others. You can't tell people the economy's fine. Don't worry. You don't believe what you're seeing, but you think there is now a chance not to say that, but to build on what is probably slightly better sense of things. Also, I guess the Fed's going to cut rates in a week, right? A week from today.
That's a big event, September 18th. Okay. Right. Put that on your schedule. We talked about October 7th. All right. September 18th is going to be a big event because I know they're going to cut rates. We think it's a quarter point. It may be a half point. But they're going to pick up the paper or the site or whatever they get their news. And they're going to say this interest rates may come down. I'm not sure we're not going to be able to, I can see myself maybe getting that house a little bit down the road. But we can't remember interest rate cuts. What our whole recent memory is just keep, I don't quite understand how to do that, but I see people complain a lot about the Fed. I don't know how you could do it much better than they've done it, honestly. We've gotten rid of inflation. We hadn't had massive unemployment. I'll go to hell in a handbasket tomorrow. I'm not suggesting anything other than that. But there's a guy jumped out of the 40-story building and said, if he passed the 20th story, so far, so good.
It's always worth reminding.
Around until November, after the first year in November.
Always worth reminding people of that famous line. And maybe next week is the 19th time when you give your economic speech. Build on whatever positive momentum there is after the Fed rate cut.
The 19th.
Yeah.
Right. I'm all for the Detroit economic.
I think it's good that we're scheduling the Harris campaign here for them. I'm sure they appreciate this work that we're doing. Yeah.
I'm sure they all listen in. They glued to the podcast.
I love I hope so. I'll let you go, but I love that. I love the as you pass the 20th floor, everything's fine. It reminds me, it's so much in the same spirit as my favorite John McCain line that that he used to love using in speeches. That it's always darkest before it turns pitch black. It's a certain...
I like that. Yeah, because you expect the darkest hours before dawn. It gets dark, and then it gets really dark.
That was very McCain-like. But anyway, James, any last words, or we're good?
No, we're good. Hope we get together after the election, hopefully.
Yeah, or maybe even if there's another debate, we should do another one.
Absolutely. I love doing it, and I love the work the Bulwark does. I think it's really important work, and I think we have some opportunities here. And once we get this thing, once this crisis passes, maybe we can all get back to the way we were. But we don't have that luxury right now.
No, we sure don't for the next 2 months. No, James, thanks very much. And thank you all for joining us on Conversations. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your interest in this program means a lot to me. I appreciate it.